Hello, I'm coming to you once again from my office in the Rayburn House office building across the street from the Capitol. I wanted to express my concerns about the surveillance that is going on in this country today, headed up mainly by the National Security Agency. We have many other intelligence agencies, and I have thought for many years that we have gone ridiculously overboard in regard to security. In fact, several weeks, I think it was, or maybe a few months after 9/11, when the Wall Street Journal happened to notice that every department and agency was sending up requests for increased funding for security, the Wall Street Journal ran an editorial saying that a wise legislative policy from now on would be to give twice the weight and 4 times the scrutiny to any bill or legislation that had the word security attached to it. But since then, we haven't done that. The Congress has routinely passed almost anything that had the word security attached to it, and we've gone ridiculously overboard. We've gone way too far. I heard one news report a couple of days ago that said security is now a $1 trillion industry. And it is just mind-boggling to think how much money the federal government has spent, the state governments have spent, the local governments have spent, in addition to all the businesses. Several years ago, I guess probably just a year or so after 9/11, the FedEx people told me they had spent $200 million on extra security that they wouldn't have spent if 9/11 had happened. And I'm certainly not saying we shouldn't be doing anything about security, but it's sad to keep just blowing money, with most of it being wasted money, huge money, mega billions that could be spent on so many other good things, cancer research, education, or simply leaving the families of America more money to so they can better clothe or better feed their children. And it's really a shame, and I hope that before long we come to our senses on this. But certainly most people in this country are very upset about these latest disclosures of how extensive this surveillance has come. In fact, just today, NBC News has a report out that says government collecting data on every call made in America. I understand that that's approximately 1 billion calls a day. And the Washington Post says the National Security Agency is tapping directly into the central servers of 9 leading U.S. internet companies, extracting audio, video, photographs, emails, documents, and connection logs that enable analysts to track a person's movements and contacts over time. The President at a press conference said, well, the Congress knew this. Well, I can assure you the Congress did not know it, at least the great majority of members of Congress. I can tell you I worked long hours in this job. I've always felt very grateful to have my job, and I read everything I can get my hands on. But I can tell you this was reported in a very limited way to the Intelligence Committee and possibly a little bit to the Judiciary Committee. I don't serve on either one of those committees. In fact, most members don't want to serve on the Intelligence Committee. It would be interesting, but you can't do much for your district on the Intelligence Committee. And besides that, they certainly wouldn't let me serve on that committee, since I have questioned for years what I think are the excessive spending on these security measures. But Senator Wyden, with whom I served in the House, and he now serves as a senator from Oregon, he's on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and he, in a hearing just a little over, about 3 months ago, in fact 3 months ago from today, he asked the National Director of Intelligence, James Clapper, he said, does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans? Mr. Clapper said, no, sir. Senator Wyden said it does not. Mr. Clapper said, not wittingly, and he's saying now that he didn't feel he could give a truthful answer to those questions, and so he gave the least untruthful answer that he could. In my newsletter that I sent to constituents July of last year, or August of last year, I have a section in there on government secrecy, and I mentioned that Senator Wyden and Senator Udall of Colorado requested from the NSA a ballpark estimate were the words that they used in the letter on how many Americans were having their phone calls monitored. And the NSA refused to give them that information, even though they both serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee. This is going too far. And in fact, in today's Washington Times, I would like to read something. It's got a headline in their commentary section that says, "Liberty in a Shambles." And it says, "Ancient colonial intrusions pale in comparison to infringement today." And this is an article or column by Judge Andrew Napolitano, and he says, "Now we know that the feds have seized the telephone records of more than 100 million Americans and the email and texting records of nearly everyone in the United States for a few years. They have obtained this under the laws that permit them to do so. These laws, just like the ones that let British soldiers write their own search warrants, were enacted validly, but they are profoundly unconstitutional." And he added this, "The government says we should trust it. Who in his right mind would do so after this? President Obama says the feds have your phone records, but are not listening to your emails, to your calls, and will not read your emails. Who would believe him?" James R. Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, testified that the feds were not gathering vast data on Americans. Who could trust him? The NSA says Congress knew about all this, but its members were prohibited from telling the American people. What kind of democracy is that? And I agree with his statements. And then Major Garrett of CNN, he wrote this a couple of days ago. He said, "What all of us can do is wonder about the frightening implications of a government-monitored, government-secured, and highly secret trove of personal data held in perpetuity in the name of public safety." I participated a couple of days ago in the classified briefing that the government gave us, the NSA and the Justice Department gave us about this. And the more I learn, the more concerned I become. And I can tell you we need to make some significant changes. We need to be more careful about who we're going to let in this country. We need to be less politically correct, but we need to stop collecting all this information on average, ordinary Americans and target people who have a realistic chance of being involved in terrorist activity. And I think it's really sad that we've come to this. The internet is a good thing in many ways, but it is sad to me that we have done away with privacy in this country. In fact, in today's Knoxville News Sentinel, there's an AP story, a national story, which says that several months ago, the University of Southern California took a poll, and it said over half of the American people said the era of Big Brother is here. And that was before these recent disclosures that have shocked so many people. I think whenever we have votes in the Congress, we need to come down on the side of privacy and try to save the few last vestiges of freedom and liberty that we have in this country. These agencies have gone too far. I have voted for several years against giving these intelligence agencies all the money that we've been giving. We've been spending more on intelligence and surveillance than all the other countries of the world combined, and it needs to stop. We have gone too far. The government seems to be totally out of control, but I'm going to do everything I can to try to bring it at least back under some type of limited control before we lose what little freedom and liberty we have in this country today.